Hello and welcome to another episode of Unstuck with Hypnopunk Transformation with Edge. You may notice my voice is even more huskier today. This is due to me losing my voice, so I am going to do my best to get through this podcast for you, and some of you may even like it even more. Today's podcast is a special one for me. It's one of only 3 interviews, I believe, in 59 episodes. Very special interview with somebody called Anthony Jacquin. I like to call him the godfather of street hypnosis. He and his work is what got me into performing street hypnosis and really putting the magic into my practice and the kind of change work that I do. This is going to be a very special interview with someone that has been a mentor to me, virtually, for about 10 years now. As always, I'd like to give a big shout out for those who have left their 5-star reviews. You remember I love those on Google Play, on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube, wherever you listen to this show. That's what lets me know that the word is getting out there. So please do subscribe to this show, do give it a like, and do share so we can continue to grow this audience. So when I moved to Canada almost 10 years ago now, I had a job. One of the first jobs I had was in a gym. I was still doing hypnosis, but it was taking a little while to build up here in Canada. So I was pursuing my other career. One of my passions at the time was as a fitness trainer, and I was working with a large chain of fitness gyms here in Canada. And I'd been there a couple of months, and my manager is one of the best bosses I ever had. He had heard I was a hypnotist, and we had these boring, long-ass meetings that we would have about once every month. It would be about 2 hours. Nobody wanted to be there, but it was kind of court mandated that they had to be there. Really, really fucking boring. And he said, "Luke, after we've taken care of business, after we've crossed the I's and dotted the T's, maybe you could do like a little hypnosis show and hypnotize some people here." And I'm like, yeah, sure, Dave. And in my head, I was shitting myself, because whenever I'd done hypnosis with clients up to that point, it was relaxation therapy. And I would get great changes with people, but I wasn't the hypnotist at that point, and I didn't demonstrate any phenomenon in sessions. So this was quite something different for me. I was actually really, really scared of doing it, and it was a very competitive environment as well. And I just imagine looking out into the crowd and seeing these other trainers wanting me to fail, deliberately cock blocking me, if you will, and snarling at me from my performance. So it did not bolster tremendous confidence in me. And I remember I just heard about this guy called Anthony Jacquin, and I'd got one of his first products called the Manchurian Candidate, and it was his approach to this thing called street hypnosis or impromptu hypnosis, which really was something different. It was impromptu. It was street. It was doing a hypnosis with people that hadn't come to a show, so they hadn't purchased a ticket, and they were not clients, so there was not some kind of agreement in place, if you will. This was rather people that he was doing, and he's a band of renegades were doing street hypnosis with people in the street, essentially going up with them and using the formula that Anthony teaches, CIQ, of giving a compliment to some strangers. You guys seem to have a great energy. The I, which was the introduction. Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm a hypnotist. I'm performing here today. And the question, which could be, have you guys ever experienced hypnosis before? Kind of using that universal, whether that would be in a bar, whether that would be in a street, whether that would be in a networking meeting. And then he would proceed to take people through various forms of hypnotic phenomenon, and then progressively take that out to bigger, larger phenomenon and skits and so forth. And it fascinated me because it's the first time I saw someone break this down in much the same way it fascinated me when I first heard about a chap called David Blaine, who I also got to meet a few years ago, who had taken magic and he took it to the street, and rather than focusing, as many shows and networks had done at that point, when it was focused on the magician, when David Blaine would go out and do street magic, the camera would be, for the most part, focusing on the reaction of the person who was receiving the magic. And it wasn't big glorious stunts like David Copperfield and Chris Angel, who I admire as well, but it was really doing something that he could carry around with him, whether that be cards or coins and stuff like that, and being able to do these magical illusions anywhere, anytime. And that's, I believe, some of the early motivation for street hypnosis. And along with a chap called Darren Brown that you may have heard about, that I know was a great inspiration to Anthony and his work in the beginning. Anyways, so I'd got Anthony's product, and I watched it, and I transcribed the 4 or 5 hour program by hand, what he was doing, because there's no PDF that came with it to make it easy. And I scribbled it down like a lunatic. If you were graphologizing it would probably be very, very scary. And I would just keep reading it, watching DVDs over and over and over again, because I was terrified of coming across as a phony and a fraud. And I was already in the Dragon's Den or the Shark Tank in this highly competitive environment of other trainers, that I knew one false step and I was going to have it, so to speak. So I was shitting it. I was scared. And what I had learned from the product of Anthony and his stuff was a progressive way of taking people from the very beginning of hypnosis all the way to really getting people to do crazy things like positive and negative hallucinations, seeing things that aren't there and not seeing things that are there. Really, really strong pieces, strong performances, but being able to test my work at all times to see where someone was in the hypnotic procedure. So it's a very, very good workable model. So it's the meeting, and I'm shitting it, and I've got my book in the back of the meeting, and I'm going through it, and everyone's bored. No one wants to be there, by the way. Nobody wants to be at this meeting. And here's me, I've been there like a month or so, and the manager's like, oh, now Luke's going to do some hypnosis, and I could see the eye rolls at this point, and the rather unfriendly audience, should we say. So it did not fill me with the greatest level of confidence. But I remember the teachings of Anthony, and I remember studying these transcripts that I'd written down vigorously. So I went up there, and I went through the processes and got some magnetic fingers, some magnetic hands, and then I decided to bring some people up. Now, the chap that I brought up was a guy that I didn't quite get along with. He didn't like me, and I didn't like him. It was just a clash. It was kind of like two alpha males that were just rubbing one another the wrong way, so to speak. So he didn't like me, I didn't like him, and I had him on stage, and I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, holy shit, this is going to go horrible, because this guy is not going to play along. Not that I want him to, but he's not going to try to make me look good. If anything, even with good solid work in hypnosis here, he's essentially got a cock block all this, but I've kind of cornered myself in this situation. So I had this guy on stage, and in all honesty, with the 20 or so people that were in that room, this is the guy that I at least want to have on the stage, because I think this is the guy that's going to make me look the most foolish. So I get him up on stage, and I take him through a couple of the phenomenons, magnetic hands, magnetic fingers. It's all going somewhat well. So then I put out the big guns with a sleep, and I give him some instructions, and he goes under. And I give him, he's a muscular, strong, athletic guy, and he drives like a big Jeep and goes hunting and does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I give him a suggestion. We had one of those really small weights, the kind of weights that you'll see, not actually in the gym itself, but often in the classrooms. They're usually pink or blue, and they're like 2 pounds, 3 pounds, some of them 1 pound. Very, very tiny weights that anyone could pick up. This is a really strong guy. I'd seen this guy, train, big muscles, very, very athletic. So I gave him a suggestion that this pink weight that was in the front of the stage that weighed no more than 2 pounds, or about a kilo from my European friends, that he could not pick it up because it weighed 1,000 pounds, and the harder he tried to pick it up, the heavier it become. And in the back of my head, I'm shitting myself, but I'm putting on this false front of confidence here, because I'm the hypnotist, what Anthony always teaches us, right? So I delivered the suggestion, and I just watched, and he went to pick up this weight, and he squats down, and he can't pick it up, and he's really struggling, and can see the veins popping out on the back of his neck and on the side of his neck, and the redness coming out. So I challenge him, like, you're a strong guy, you can pick that up. It's, look at it, it's really small, and find that you cannot because it weighs 1,000 pounds. And he kept trying, and he couldn't do it. And at that point, I became a believer, in as much as this guy was not playing along. This guy had not paid me to work with him. This wasn't a show that he bought tickets to. This was a boring ass meeting. This guy did not like me yet, and had no reason to play along to make me look good. Yet I was getting this strong phenomenon. And it was at that point, at that very point, that I discovered that I was no longer playing the part of the hypnotist. I had become the hypnotist. And now here's the interview with Anthony Jacquin.
Hey, Luke Michael Howard, aka the Hypnopunk, here from Hypnosis, here with the great Anthony Jacquin. Good to meet you at last. Great to meet you too. Big inspiration for me over the last 10 years in hypnosis, and I have 5 questions I'd like to ask you. That's okay.
Let's do it. I'll do my best.
Awesome. How has your approach to hypnosis changed since you started to now?
That's a good question. I guess it's got simpler. The language I use is clean and clear, rather than me thinking I need lots of special language patterns and secret techniques. I still love the language, I still study it, I still enjoy a cleverly structured sentence, but more than that, I think we just need to mean what we say. The other thing is, I've moved from thinking of hypnosis as a state to thinking of hypnosis being better defined by the subjective experience, the way you relate to the response. I see hypnosis as responding in a way that's experienced as being non-volitional or involuntary to a greater or lesser degree. I guess one other thing is, however hypnosis looks, it's kind of a paradox with the involuntary bit, however it looks, hypnosis is always a collaborative event. Sounds obvious, I know, but there were times when I first started where I really thought I was doing this to someone, and I can still make it look that way on stage and stuff, but I really see it genuinely as true collaboration.
Awesome. What would the older Anthony say to the younger Anthony starting off in hypnosis? To kind of fast track him.
First off, I would say start doing street hypnosis earlier. I did 6 years just doing therapy, and even the early part of that, when I barely had a client, I'd have to wait months to hypnotise someone again. And I look back on that period now, I was younger, out a lot. I could have got so much experience if I just started doing street hypnosis anywhere and everywhere. The fact is, I became a better therapist once I started doing performance hypnosis. I became a better stage hypnotist when I did street hypnosis. So that would be the first thing. Just begin. Start talking about this now. You're embarrassed about it. Everyone loves it. Do it. Practice.
Awesome. What was one of your biggest challenges in hypnosis? Either learning something with a client, with somebody you were training? What's one of your biggest challenges?
Biggest challenges. I It's information overload at first, and I think a lot of people go through it. I love the subject and I love studying and enjoy watching videos, reading books about hypnosis, but I was drowning, paralysis by analysis is how someone put it. You're just like, oh, what's the best way of doing it? When I teach people hypnosis now, and I know you've heard this analogy, but I sometimes say, famous saying in magic, a magician has 6 tricks, they do thousands of times.
Someone told me that yesterday.
Yeah, and an amateur has 1,000 tricks, they use them once or twice. The point is that if you stick to those 6 tricks, doesn't mean you can't expand later on. They will teach you everything you need to know about magic. The soft skills, how to approach people, how to deal with difficult people, how to make the most of good fortune. It's the same with hypnosis. The basic techniques that are, stuff in my book, magnetic fingers, magnetic hands, handshake induction, and levitation. It doesn't mean that's everything, of course it's not. But those things will teach you how to pace and lead. They'll teach you how to coax responses out, how to build responses, ways to exit. They'll teach you everything you need to know. So I would never stop consuming information about this, to be honest, but I would call off the search for the ultimate technique, the best technique, the most reliable technique.
The bazooka.
Yeah, and instead just become very, very good at a handful of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do most new hypnotists miss when they're working with people?
Well, I guess when you first start, you're so focused on the technique. It's difficult, you're so focused on getting the words and the actions right that you fail to observe the subtle shifts and changes. I don't mean signs of hypnosis. I mean the signs that are you responding to even the tiny little suggestions. Yeah, that's right, as those hands touch, just relax. I'm looking for this, tiny responses. So certainly new hypnotists miss that. The nature of this thing, it's very easy for our ego to get caught up in it and think, I have the power.
Like He-Man, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's a great skill.
Get over yourself. This is a collaborative event. Yes, you're the guide, you make the thing occur, but ultimately, there's a trap. There's a trap there, which lots of us have to go through at some point. But just stay humble. Recognise this is miraculous. What you're doing. This is life changing. This is not just silliness. There's that. The other thing I'd say is remember, however little you know, you could provoke a miraculous change within someone if you could find the courage to say the words, you're going to be completely free of this. That pain can leave now. So don't think of those things that seem more miraculous. Don't think of them as advanced techniques or needing years of stuff to do. Things like pain control. I didn't suggest that kind of stuff for people for a long time. If someone's in pain, I can't just go over there and say, hey, you can be free of that. But I've seen it now so consistently that, and often that more miraculous stuff, if anything, the technique's simpler. There's less to say. So just get stuck in and be prepared to get a bit of egg on your face, as we say in the UK. Doesn't hurt that much.
If working with clients, if you could only do one technique or share them one shift in their perspectives, just one thing you could give people that would kind of be, even though it doesn't exist, that bazooka to get that biggest shift in them overcoming stuff, what would be that frame, that way of looking at things, or technique?
What you mean therapeutically?
Yeah.
Well, the technique I will use in almost every single first session that often does all the heavy lifting is parts, I call it a parts negotiation, parts work, parts therapy. The way I do it is very similar to a 6-step reframe. You can find that on the internet for free. I've achieved great results just with that for almost any kind of issue. So I will often start there. all the techniques I use are kind of, I say they're transparent. By that I just mean they can be pointed at almost anything with a bit of adaptation rather. The arrow technique by my dad, not meaning to just promote our stuff, but it took me years of him doing that, which, you know, to producing complete pain relief, people with chronic pain. Years of doing that before I could accept this isn't just Freddie power. This isn't just a one-off, you know, because it's so bold. But that arrow technique, again, now we've released it as a product and it's out there in the community. People are putting psoriasis, tinnitus, cluster headaches, trauma, abuse, gone. So that would be in my top 3 for sure. I guess if there was a number 3, it's direct suggestion. Create a response, you know, perhaps raise some emotion, but create a response and directly suggest this away, like abracadabra. I create what I speak. Again, I got into this via the indirect Ericksonian vibe, language patterns, all that stuff. And I still love it, but if I'd known now what, you know, known then what I know now, I could have got more results quicker by using plain old English.
Beautiful. Anthony Jacquin, how can people find out about you?
You can find out about me by visiting my personal website, which is Anthony with an H, anthonyjacquin.com. I run a training company of my father, Freddie Jacquin, which is the Jacquin Hypnosis Academy.com, the arrowtechnique.com if you want to see some videos about our technique. I spend too much time on social media, so probably see me on Facebook. Ask me a question if you've got one, and don't hesitate. Whatever it is you're into, personal development, trippy experiences, helping people, performing, selling stuff, doing a sport, get hypnosis in your toolkit and you will enhance what you do.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, buddy. Appreciate it.
Good questions.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Cheers,
Enjoy your
man.
lunch.
I hope you enjoyed the interview, and a big shout out for Anthony Jacquin for joining us on this show here today. If there's something in your life that's been causing you to feel stuck, be that in your health, be that in your relationships, be that in your career, and you're not quite sure how to fix it or where to turn, but it's getting to a point where you've got to do something about it because it's causing you some kind of pain, be that physical, be that mental, be that emotional, then please do contact me on mail at lukenosis.com. Mail, M-A-I-L, at lukenosis, LUKENOSIS.com, and request a 30-minute complimentary unstuck session with me, either over the telephone or over some kind of video messaging. And please understand, this is not a free therapy session, this is not a hypnosis session or anything like that. It's an opportunity to have me in your corner for 30 minutes to brainstorm some ways that potentially I can help you to pull yourself out of that hole that you're in, to take your life to the next level. Always believe.